Let's talk about the most boring thing ever, walking to your car. You step out the door of a large building, glance at the time. It's 2:27 p.m. and your next meeting is at 3 o'clock, and it's a half-hour's drive away. So you figure you've got 3 minutes to get yourself into the driver's seat to stay on schedule. You look in the direction where you parked, well, where you think you parked, and you start walking. What happens next is probably the least interesting part of your day. Right on schedule, at just about 2:30, you drop into your seat, start the car, drive off the lot. This is so unremarkable that you don't even notice it. You don't give it a second thought. But what it takes to achieve that success is actually pretty sophisticated. On first glance, it doesn't seem like it. All that's happening is that your brain, that is, your own personal executive office, is setting a goal, an output requirement and a deadline, and then your feet, which are your workforce, are carrying it out, right? Well, there's a lot more to it than that. The process does start with a high-level goal set from above. But as soon as you start walking, things get a lot more complicated. As your feet move across the ground, they detect subtle variations in the surface. Is there gravel? Is it wet? Your foot and leg muscles compensate without intervention from, quote, management to keep you upright and on track. Meanwhile, those muscles are dependent upon blood oxygen to keep going. If they're getting enough, everything's fine. If they're not, maybe the pace is too quick, maybe the surface is too difficult, they make a call for more, a sort of escalation. That escalation goes first to middle management, your cardiovascular system. In some cases, that system can satisfy the need directly. More resources get sent down to the workers who need them. In other cases, the request is too great. It can't be handled at the middle, so it gets escalated all the way to the top. That's when you get a message from your body that says something like this: breathe harder or walk slower. And you do. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, something else is happening too. You're looking where you're going. And up in your executive office, you're processing the new information you get. Maybe you see something in your path, an open hole or a tree, and decide you have to go around it. Or maybe you notice that the car you thought was yours isn't, and you need to change direction. So along you go. You have information flowing up from the bottom and down from the top. You have decisions getting made at all levels, with escalations happening when necessary. And you have a whole system. That's a key word, system, processing all of the information and all of the decisions for one reason, so that in this moment, you take the most reasonable step toward your goal. And then, in the next moment, you take the next most reasonable step from there. In other words, you iterate. What does that mean? Well, the total trip to your car might take a few hundred steps. You can't foresee more than about the first 5 or 10 of them when you start out. But every step you take, from the first to the last, is the most reasonable one at that moment. And after a step is complete, the information that comes from it, new information that wasn't available before you took the step, is incorporated into the decision about the next one. Iteration is the way effective systems solve problems whose solutions are too complex to be predefined. It's how trees take shape as they grow. It's how computers simulate weather, traffic patterns, and aircraft flight. And it's how you walk to your car. If you're still not impressed by your trip across the parking lot, let's talk about what doesn't happen. You don't find yourself paralyzed on the sidewalk, with your feet awaiting permission from your brain to take the next step because you stepped on a piece of gravel that wasn't in the original plan. You don't stop in the middle of the street for a process debate about left foot first or right foot first. You don't see an open manhole coming 40 paces away, repeatedly decide that you should change direction, and then fall down the hole anyway. You don't arrive at the wrong car, or arrive 50 to 200% later than you expected. You don't run out of oxygen because your foot muscles can't get what they need from your cardiovascular system. And you don't roam the parking lot in circles, trying to decide whether you'll ever get to the car in a timely fashion, or whether you should just cancel your 3 o'clock meeting. Any of these outcomes would be, well, dumb. But they don't happen. Not on your walk to the car. They do happen in organizations. Micromanagement from above stalls progress below. Turf wars stifle output. Lack of flexibility makes even the most foreseeable problems impossible to avoid. Plans and budgets never catch up with real complexity and cost. Resources are held hostage by cumbersome approval processes. And lack of information flow from above and below pollutes decision-making at all levels. You've probably been part of a, quote, dumb work group or organization. One that delivered decisions and results less intelligent than its individual members, certainly less intelligent than you. If so, you know how frustrating and wasteful this is. If you're lucky, you've also been part of a smart organization, one that does iterate, one that moves the right information in both directions between layers, in regular and useful ways, in support of good decisions, one that makes good decisions at every level, one that doesn't get stuck in an overly rigid plan, but instead stays flexible as it pursues clearly defined outcomes. One that continually asks itself the question, what's the next most logical step to be taken? Takes it, learns from it, and repeats. If you've had this experience, you know just how engaging and exciting it can be for an organization to iterate. If you haven't, You'll have to trust me for now that such places exist. They do, and they're not nearly the minority that some people think. But whether or not you've experienced such an organization firsthand, you need to know that we know what they look like and how to create them. In fact, we have over 60 years of research, information, and experience that define exactly what people do in these organizations, and almost that much experience in helping leaders, managers, and their teams get there. That's our purpose here, and it's in 3 parts. First, to help you understand, to teach you the key behaviors of management and leadership that make an organization iterate instead of being dumb. Second, to help you assess, to help you recognize the extent to which those behaviors are present or absent, both in you as a manager and leader, and in those around and above you. And third, to help you improve, to make your work group and your organization iterate, even just a little more than they do now. Let's get started.